Commander Vithara Nayak stood on the observation deck of the Kalaris outpost, her scales rippling with distress as she watched the holographic projection. The Drekar fleet had encircled the station, their massive ships adorned with the skull-like emblems that had become synonymous with extinction throughout the Orion Arm. "How many evacuation ships made it out?" she asked, her voice steady despite the chaos. Lieutenant Mezix checked the terminal. 7, Commander. The 8th was caught in a tractor beam. The remaining civilians are trapped in the lower sectors. 3,000 souls remained on the station. The Kalaris were peaceful researchers, diplomats, and traders. Their species had abandoned warfare centuries ago. The Drekar knew this. That's why they'd targeted the outpost, knowing there would be minimal resistance. Another species to add to their collection of conquests. "The quantum relay is still operational," Science Officer Krell noted, his tentacles twitching nervously. "We could send one last distress call." Vithara's inner eyelids closed briefly. "To whom?" "The coalition forces are engaged in the Cygnus conflict. Our homeworld is too distant. No help will arrive in time." The station shuddered as another volley of Drekar weapons impacted the shields. According to the readouts, they would fail within 20 minutes. "Send it anyway," she decided, "on all frequencies. Even if help cannot arrive, someone should know what happened here." Krell composed the message, his appendages dancing across. The controls, the quantum relay hummed as it transmitted their desperate plea across the stars. On Earth, Admiral Thaddeus Blackwood was reviewing reports in his office at the United Earth Defense Force headquarters when the transmission arrived. Humanity, relative newcomers to interstellar travel, had established diplomatic relations with 17 alien species, including the Kalaris. Still learning the rules of a complex cosmic neighborhood, they had built their military accordingly. Fast, versatile, and with capabilities that often surprised older spacefaring races. "Sir," his AI assistant Athena announced, "priority distress call from Kalaris Outpost Helion 7. Blackwood reviewed the message, his weathered face hardening as he absorbed the details. The Drekar were unknown to humans, but the message included tactical data on their ships and weapons. The Admiral immediately opened a secure channel to the UEDF's rapid response vessel, the Thunderchild. "Commander Octavia Reed," he addressed the ship's captain, "I'm sending coordinates for a Kalaris research station under heavy attack. Intelligence suggests approximately 3,000 civilians and a hostile force with superior numbers." Commander Reed, a former Special Forces operator with distinctive platinum-white hair and cybernetic enhancements along her temples, studied the data. "Sir, that's beyond established human space. The Kalaris never signed a mutual defense agreement." "There. Researchers, Reed, scientists, diplomats," Blackwood's voice was iron, "and they asked for help." A smile slowly spread across Reed's face. "Understood, Admiral. Thunderchild can be ready to jump in 30 minutes. You have 15, and you're not going alone." Blackwood's fingers flew across his console. "I'm dispatching the 7th Striker. Fleet, 4 assault carriers, support vessels, and 2 experimental Hellfire-class destroyers." Reed's eyebrows raised. "The Council hasn't approved deploying the Hellfire-class vessels outside our system." "I'll deal with the Council," Blackwood stood. "The Kalaris think no help is coming. Let's prove them wrong. Humanity may be young among the stars, Commander, but we protect our friends." As alarms blared throughout Earth's orbital shipyards, humanity prepared for its first interstellar rescue mission. On Helion 7, Commander Vithara had no idea that help was already on its way, and that the Drekar were about to learn why underestimating Earth was a grave mistake. The Drekar assault ships closed in on Helion 7, their formation tightening like a noose. Supreme Commander Vorkath watched from the bridge of his flagship, the Ravager, his chitinous jaw clicking with anticipated pleasure. The Kalaris station's shields flickered, nearly depleted. Prepare boarding parties, he ordered. I want specimens from every demographic. The rest can be processed for the harvesting ships. The Drekar had conquered 17 species across 3 spiral arms. Their strategy never varied: strike isolated outposts first, harvest biological material, study weaknesses, then hit major population centers. The Kalaris would be number 18, their genetic material catalogued and stored after their civilization was reduced to ash. Commander, his tactical officer reported, anomalous energy signatures detected near the system's edge. Vorkath dismissed the concern with a wave of his clawed appendage. Probably reinforcements from the Kalaris homeworld. Too few, too late. Inside Helion 7, Commander Vithara organized the remaining Kalaris into secure zones. Without weapons or combat training, their options were limited to delaying tactics and hiding. Security Chief Lamora had distributed the station's meager supply of personal shields to those guarding the nursery sectors, where the youngest Kalaris huddled in fear. The shields will fail in 2 minutes, Lamora reported, her cranial ridges darkened with stress. After that, they'll cut through the hull. We should consider. She was interrupted by a blaring alarm. Unknown ships emerging from faster-than-light travel, announced the automated system. Multiple signatures detected. Vithara rushed to the sensor display, expecting to see the token relief force from her homeworld. Perhaps 1 or 2 light cruisers, enough only to witness their destruction. Instead, the display showed a massive formation emerging from 11 separate jump points surrounding the Drekar fleet. Those aren't Kalaris ships, Krell whispered. The configuration is unknown. On the bridge of the Thunderchild, Commander, Reed stood as her vessel emerged from the jump, the experimental warp engines cooling as they transitioned to normal space. Behind her came the rest of the 7th Striker Fleet, a force assembled and deployed in record time, crewed by Earth's finest. All ships report successful transition, announced Lieutenant Darius Okafor, tactical officer. Minor spatial distortion on the Agamemnon, but they're compensating. Reed nodded, her augmented eyes analyzing the battlefield in microseconds. The Drekar have already breached the station's outer defenses. Deploy Valkyrie squadrons to establish a perimeter. Have the Hellfire destroyers move to positions Alpha and Delta. The 2 experimental destroyers, Prometheus and Tartarus, moved with surprising speed for vessels their size. Each carried Earth's latest weapons technology, gravitational lances and quantum disruptors that the galaxy's elder races would have considered theoretically impossible. Open communication with the Drekar flagship, Reed ordered. Aboard the Ravager, Vorkath stared at the holographic display of the human fleet with confusion that quickly turned to contempt. Unknown vessels, he growled when the communication channel opened. This system is now under Drekar control. Depart immediately or be destroyed. Commander Reed's face appeared on his screen, her expression calm but resolute. This is Commander Octavia Reed of the United Earth Defense Force. You are attacking a civilian research station containing non-combatants. Power down your weapons and withdraw. Vorkath's translator processed the unfamiliar language, and he clicked his mandibles in amusement. Humans, your species is not known to us. Your inexperience is apparent. We are the Drekar, conquerors of... You misunderstand, Reed interrupted. That wasn't a negotiation. It was your only warning. The channel closed, and Vorkath hissed in rage. Target the largest human vessel. Show them the consequences of their arrogance. 3 Drekar cruisers broke formation, directing their primary weapons toward the Thunderchild. The energy beams lanced out, only to be absorbed by shimmering defensive fields that hadn't been visible seconds before. Targeting solutions acquired, Lieutenant Okafor reported calmly. Hellfire destroyers in position. Reed nodded. All ships execute Operation Prometheus. Let's show the galaxy what humanity does to bullies. As the Kalaris watched in stunned silence from the station, Earth's fleet moved with precision that spoke of endless drills and simulations. The Thunderchild accelerated directly toward the Drekar flagship, seemingly suicidal, until a swarm of smaller craft burst from its launch bays. The Valkyrie squadrons had joined the battle. Inbound human fighters, configuration unknown. The Drekar tactical officer's voice had risen an octave as he tracked the approaching Valkyrie squadrons. The Valkyries were Earth's premier space superiority fighters, sleek, nimble craft, piloted by elite crews trained in zero-G combat scenarios that would have been considered insane by most spacefaring standards. Unlike the rigid formations favored by older civilizations, the human fighters moved in unpredictable patterns, communication encrypted through quantum entanglement networks that couldn't be jammed. Major Kalia Izumi led Wraith Squadron, her Valkyrie class, fighter diving beneath a Drekar cruiser while deploying countermeasures against its tracking systems. Wraith leader to all pilots, she transmitted. Remember the simulations. These oversized bugs haven't fought humans before. They don't know our capabilities. Let's keep it that way. Copy that, replied Captain Farid Nazari, her wingman. Though, I doubt the simulations prepared us for those tendrils on their hull. The tendrils were defensive appendages that tracked and fired at approaching vessels with surprising accuracy. 3 Valkyries had already taken hits, though their advanced armor had prevented catastrophic damage. Adapt and overcome, Kalia responded, executing a role that would have liquefied the organs of pilots without inertial dampening technology. Her fighters' targeting systems locked onto one of the tendril clusters, firing EMP warheads. The electromagnetic pulse disabled the defensive systems on that section of the cruiser, creating an opening for the second wave of fighters. Captain Nazari led them through, deploying seismic charges that attached to the hull before detonating, sending shock waves through the Drekar vessel structure. Above the main battlefield, the Prometheus destroyer activated its gravitational lance, humanity's newest weapon system, developed by studying the physics of black holes. The targeted Drekar ship found itself caught in a localized gravity well that compressed its port side, crumpling armor and distorting internal systems before the field was released. On Helion 7, Commander Vithara and her staff watched the battle unfold with increasing astonishment. The tactical display showed the human vessels moving with a coordination that seemed impossible for a species so new to interstellar travel. How are they neutralizing the Drekar shields? Security Chief Lamora asked, her scientist's curiosity momentarily overriding her fear. The modulation patterns should be impossible to predict. Science Officer Krell studied the data streams. They're not predicting them. They're using some form of quantum tunneling to bypass the shields entirely. I've never seen technology like this. Commander! Lieutenant Mezix called out suddenly. We're receiving a transmission from the human flagship. Commander Reed's face appeared on their screen. Kalaris Outpost Helion 7. This is Commander Reed of the UEDF Thunderchild. We've established a defensive perimeter and are deploying troops to secure your station. Please designate landing zones for our rescue teams. Vithara stepped forward, her scales shifting to the formal pattern of diplomatic gratitude. Commander Reed, this is unexpected. We did not anticipate assistance, certainly not from Earth. A slight smile crossed Reed's face. The Kalaris Embassy on Earth hosted a cultural exchange last month. My daughter's school participated. She came home with quite an appreciation for your species' art forms. Before Vithara could respond, the station shuddered violently. Drekar boarding parties have breached level 12, Lamora reported. They're moving toward the civilian shelters. Reed's expression hardened. Understood. Designate landing zones for our Marines. We'll handle the borders. In the residential sectors of Helion 7, panic spread as Drekar boarding parties cut through internal barriers. Their exoskeletal armor made them nearly impervious to the makeshift weapons some Kalaris had fashioned. A group of 12 Kalaris. Families found themselves cornered in a hydroponics bay, the children hidden behind rows of cultivated plants, while the adults formed a defensive line. The bulkhead door glowed red as Drekar cutting tools worked through the metal. Elder Trozic, a respected Kalaris philosopher, stood at the front, armed only with a thermal regulation rod, repurposed as a staff. "Remember," he told the others calmly, "we may not be warriors, but we will not surrender our young without resistance." The door burst inward with a shower of molten metal, and 3 Drekar soldiers stepped through, their mandibles clicking in predatory anticipation as they raised their weapons. Before they could fire, the ceiling access panel crashed down onto the lead Drekar. A heavily armored figure dropped through the opening, landing with practiced grace despite the bulky exosuit. The helmet visor depolarized, revealing a human face with a determined expression. "UEDF Marines," announced Lieutenant Adira Moshe, raising a weapon the Kalaris had never seen before. "Everyone stay down." More Marines rappelled through the opening as Lieutenant Moshe engaged the Drekar boarders with precision that spoke of extensive combat experience. The Drekar, expecting helpless scientists, found themselves facing Earth's elite special forces instead. On the bridge of the Ravager, Supreme Commander Vorkath watched in fury as the battle shifted against his forces. 4 Drekar vessels had already been disabled, and the boarding parties were reporting heavy resistance from the human troops. "Impossible," he hissed. "These humans cannot have developed such tactics and technology independently." His strategist, a veteran of 100 conquests, had no answers. Perhaps they received assistance from other species, or perhaps what? Vorkath demanded. "Perhaps we have underestimated them." Lieutenant Adira Moshe's Marine squad moved through Helion 7's corridors with methodical precision, securing each section before advancing. Their exosuits, designated Atlas armor, combined mobility with protection, featuring reactive plating that adjusted to different weapon types in milliseconds. "Bravo, Team Sitrep," Moshe requested over the encrypted channel as her squad escorted the rescued Kalaris toward the secure zones. "Heavy resistance in Section 8C, came the reply from Sergeant Bakari Luande. "These Drekar are persistent. They're using some kind of neural disruptor that's playing havoc with our sensor arrays." Moshe frowned behind her visor. "Switch to Mark 4 protocols. Send the data to Thunderchild for analysis." The human Marines had trained extensively for first contact, combat scenarios, developing tactics for species with unknown capabilities. Each encounter with the Drekar was being recorded, analyzed, and used to update combat parameters across the fleet. Elder Trozic watched with fascination as Lieutenant Moshe interfaced with her squad. "Your species prepared for this exact scenario, defending against unknown aggressors?" Moshe checked her weapons charge before responding. "Not this exact scenario, but similar ones. Earth has a long history of conflict. When we reached the stars, we hoped for peace but prepared for war." "A contradictory approach," Trozic noted. "But effective," Moshe replied, as her helmet displayed an alert. "Drekar signatures approaching. 3 hostiles, 20 meters, and closing. Get behind cover." Before the Kalaris could react, the corridor wall exploded inward. A specialized Drekar breacher unit charged through, its armored carapace glistening with chemical compounds that neutralized standard weapons fire. Behind it came 2 hunter units with barbed capture nets. Moshe didn't hesitate. "Argus Protocol." Her squad's Atlas suits simultaneously activated a subsystem that released a swarm of micro-drones. The tiny devices swarmed the Drekar breacher, finding the minimal gaps in its armor and delivering targeted electrical pulses that interfered with its nervous system. As it staggered, Moshe fired her rail cannon, a weapon that accelerated projectiles to velocities that could penetrate even Drekar armor. On the Thunderchild's bridge, Commander Reed monitored the battlespace hologram as reports flowed in from the Marine teams inside Helion 7 and the fighter squadrons engaging Drekar ships. "The station's secondary power grid is failing," reported Lieutenant Okafor. "Life support will be compromised in civilian sectors within 30 minutes. Reed nodded, making a quick decision. "Deploy the engineering corps. Have them establish emergency power relays from our auxiliary generators." "Commander," interrupted Communications Officer Eloise Dubois, "the Drekar flagship is hailing us." Supreme Commander Vorkath's insectoid face appeared on the main display, mandibles twitching with barely contained rage. "Human Commander, you have interfered in matters beyond your understanding. The Drekar Imperium has claimed this sector. Your resistance, while impressive, is futile." Reed's expression remained neutral. "Your claim wasn't filed with any recognized interstellar authority. More importantly, you're attacking civilians protected under coalition conventions. Withdraw your forces now." Vorkath's multifaceted eyes seemed to pulse. "You are young among the stars. You do not comprehend the natural order. The strong consume the weak. It has always been thus." "Perhaps where you come from," Reed replied, her voice hard as steel, "but humanity has different ideas about the natural order." The Drekar commander made a dismissive gesture. "Your species will learn. Already our reinforcements approach. The world render will arrive within hours. Not even your impressive technology can stand against a Drekar dreadnought." The communication terminated, and Reed immediately turned to her staff. "Tactical analysis of this world render threat." Strategic Officer Imani Wolde reviewed the intercepted Drekar transmissions. "Based on communications traffic, it appears to be their version of a capital ship, estimated 3 times the mass of our largest vessel, heavily armed with what they call Star Killer weaponry." Reed processed this information rapidly. "Contact Admiral Blackwood, request immediate deployment of the 3rd Hellfire destroyer, and prepare to evacuate the Kalaris to our ships." In the station's command center, Commander Vithara worked alongside human technicians to coordinate the evacuation. Grell approached her with a data tablet, his tentacles trembling slightly. "Commander, I've analyzed the Drekar communications. The world render they mentioned, it's the same vessel that destroyed the Feroci homeworld 3 cycles ago. No defense has ever withstood its primary weapon." Vithara's scales paled. "Then we must accelerate the evacuation. Even the humans cannot." She was interrupted by the arrival of Commander Reed, who had transported aboard the station to coordinate efforts. "Personally, Commander Vithara," Reed greeted her, "we've established secure corridors to evacuation points. Our carriers can accommodate your full population." Vithara studied the human officer. "Commander Reed, my science officer has information about the Drekar reinforcements. Their capabilities exceed even your impressive fleet." Reed nodded. "We're aware of the threat assessment. Admiral Blackwood is deploying additional forces, but they won't arrive before the world render. We're implementing contingency protocols." "What contingencies could possibly counter such a weapon?" Krell asked. A slight smile crossed Reed's face. "Earth has faced extinction-level threats before, Officer Krell. Not from space, but from our own making. It taught us to think creatively about survival." As they spoke, the Tartarus destroyer maneuvered into position at the system's edge, its advanced sensors monitoring subspace for the approaching Drekar dreadnought. Inside its specialized hangar bay, engineers made final adjustments to a device designated Prometheus Protocol, humanity's ultimate defensive weapon, developed for scenarios exactly like this one. The world render emerged from hyperspace at the system's edge, its massive form dwarfing even the largest Drekar vessels in the existing fleet. shaped like a colossal articulated spine with protruding weapon arrays resembling ribs. It measured over 7 kilometers from bow to stern. Its hull bore the scars of dozens of battles, none of which it had lost. "Dreadnought detected," announced the Thunderchild's sensor officer, analyzing capabilities. The tactical display updated with preliminary data on the world render's weapon systems, defensive capabilities, and power signature. The estimates were sobering. Its primary weapon could theoretically crack a small moon. "All ships, execute. Formation Delta," Commander Reed ordered calmly. "Evacuate remaining Kalaris to secondary vessels and prepare for immediate withdrawal." On Helion 7, the evacuation had reached its final stages. Marine squads escorted groups of Kalaris to transport shuttles while engineering teams worked to stabilize the station's critical systems. Lieutenant Moshe's team had reached the nursery sectors, where the youngest Kalaris waited with their caretakers. "We have specialized transports for the young ones," Moshe explained to head caretaker Nylith, whose tendrils waved anxiously. "The gravity and atmosphere have been adjusted to Kalaris standards," Nylith bowed gratefully. "Without your intervention, these children would have become Drekar specimens. How can we repay such a debt?" "By surviving," Moshe replied simply. "That's payment enough." As the evacuation continued, the World Render began powering its main weapon system, a gravitational compressor that created localized space-time distortions capable of crushing matter at the atomic level. Aboard the Ravager, Supreme Commander, Vorkath watched with satisfaction. "The humans fought well, but the natural order will be restored. Target their flagship first." His tactical officer hesitated. "Supreme Commander, the human vessels are taking unusual positions. They appear to be creating a geometric formation around our fleet." Vorkath dismissed the concern. "Irrelevant. Once the World Render fires, their formation will be nothing but debris." On the Tartarus destroyer, Captain Ilara Costas monitored the deployment of the Prometheus protocol. The device, no larger than a shuttle, was positioned precisely at the calculated focal point of the human fleet's formation. "All ships report ready, Captain," her executive officer reported. "Quantum synchronization at optimal levels." Costas nodded. "Activate the Heisenberg matrix." Throughout the human fleet, specialized emitters activated simultaneously, creating an interlocking field of quantum entanglement. The seemingly simple geometric formation was actually a precisely calculated array designed to channel and amplify the Prometheus protocol's effects. On the Thunderchild, Commander Reed opened a channel to all human vessels. "All ships, prepare for dimensional shear, stabilizers at maximum." The World Render's primary weapon reached full charge, its energy signature causing sensor systems throughout the system to fluctuate. Supreme Commander Vorkath gave the order to fire, confident in his imminent victory. The moment the World Render's weapon discharged, Captain Costas activated the Prometheus protocol. The device didn't attempt to block or absorb the incoming attack. Instead, it created a controlled dimensional fracture that redirected the energy through the quantum entanglement network established by the human fleet. The World Render's destructive beam struck the Prometheus field and vanished. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with mathematical precision, the energy reappeared behind the Drekar dreadnought, striking its engines with the same force it had projected. Impossible! Vorkath roared as alarms blared throughout the Ravager. They redirected the World Render's attack. The dreadnought's engine section collapsed inward as its own weapon's energy tore through its structure. Secondary explosions cascaded along its length as power systems overloaded. The World Render, pride of the Drekar fleet and destroyer of civilizations, began to break apart, its spine-like structure fracturing at multiple points. "All Drekar vessels, this is Commander Reed," broadcast the Thunderchild. "Your flagship is critically damaged. Power down weapons and prepare to be..." boarded, or face similar consequences. You have 2 minutes to comply. In the command center of Helion 7, Commander Vithara and her staff watched in stunned silence as the invincible world render disintegrated before their eyes. Science Officer Krell worked frantically at his console, trying to understand what he had just witnessed. The humans didn't just reflect the attack, he said in disbelief. They somehow channeled it through a quantum matrix that amplified its destructive potential. The physics involved, it should be impossible. Perhaps, replied Commander Vithara, we have much to learn from our new allies. As the remaining Drekar vessels powered down their weapons, signaling surrender, the last of the Kalaris civilians boarded the human transport ships. Elder Trozik found himself alongside Lieutenant Moshe as they watched the world render's final collapse. Your species is remarkably young to have developed such advanced technology, he observed. Most civilizations take millennia to reach this level. Moshe removed her helmet, revealing a face marked with both youth and the weathered experience of a soldier. Necessity drives innovation, Elder Trozik. Earth's history is filled with existential threats, some from nature, many of our own making. We learn to adapt quickly or perish, a harsh teacher, Trozik noted. But effective, Moshe replied, echoing her earlier words. And now we bring those lessons to the stars, not to conquer, but to ensure that what happened to the 17 species the Drekar destroyed doesn't happen to anyone else, human or otherwise. As the human fleet regrouped, the Kalaris finally understood. Help hadn't just arrived. Humanity had stormed through hellfire to provide it. 3 days after the Battle of Helion 7, representatives from 12 spacefaring species gathered aboard the coalition diplomatic vessel Concordia. The hastily called assembly included species that had previously regarded humanity with skepticism or outright distrust, viewing Earth's rapid technological advancement as potentially destabilizing to the galactic order. Admiral Thaddeus Blackwood represented Earth, his weathered features impassive as accusations and questions flew across the chamber. The coalition's leading diplomat, High Arbiter Zoln of the Veteran Conclave, called the session to order. This assembly has been convened to address the military action undertaken by Earth forces in the Helion system, Zoln announced, his crystalline form refracting light as he spoke. While the rescue of Kalaris civilians is commendable, the unilateral deployment of restricted weapons technology raises serious concerns. Ambassador Dreth of the Solari Confederation rose, his luminous form pulsing with agitation. The humans deployed quantum manipulation technology that violates the Antares conventions. Such weapons were prohibited after the quantum wars for good reason. They risk dimensional instability. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Admiral Blackwood waited patiently until acknowledged by the High Arbiter. The Prometheus. Protocol is not a weapon, Blackwood stated firmly. It's a defensive system designed specifically to counter overwhelming force without escalation. It redirects energy rather than generating it. Semantics, hissed Ambassador Marith of the Sylph Dominion. The fact remains that human military vessels entered another sovereign system without coalition authorization and engaged a species with whom Earth had no formal relations. Commander Vithara stepped forward from the Kalaris delegation. With respect, Ambassador, had Earth waited for coalition authorization, my people would have been exterminated. The Drekar left no time for diplomatic protocols. High Arbiter Zoln's crystalline structure dimmed slightly in acknowledgement. The emergency nature of the situation is noted, Commander Vithara. However, the precedent concerns us. Earth is advancing, militarily at a rate unprecedented in coalition history. At this accusation, Admiral Blackwood's composure finally showed cracks. He stood, addressing the assembly with barely contained passion. Yes, Earth developed quickly. We had to. While the coalition debated response protocols, 17 species were wiped out by the Drekar, the Feroci, the Talari, the Jutak. All gone while this assembly drafted strongly worded condemnations. A tense silence fell over the chamber. The extinction of those species was a painful memory for many present, and a shameful one. Humanity does not seek to disrupt the coalition's order, Blackwood continued, his voice softening, but neither will we stand by while innocents are slaughtered. The Kalaris are scientists and diplomats who have enriched galactic culture immeasurably. They deserved protection. Elder Trozic, who had been granted special permission to address the assembly, moved to the center of the chamber. His advanced age gave his words particular weight among the gathered species. I have studied the philosophical texts of 100 worlds, he began. In most, I found the same core principle, that advanced civilizations have a duty to protect those who cannot protect themselves. The humans exemplify this principle not in words, but in deeds. He turned to face each delegation in turn. They came without being bound by treaty. They risked their lives without calculation of benefit, and when victorious, they sought no territory, no technology, no advantage, only the safety of my people. The assembly remained silent as Elder Trozic continued. Perhaps what disturbs this body is not that humans have advanced quickly, but that they have revealed our own complacency. While we deliberated, they acted. While we calculated political costs, they calculated only lives saved. On the Thunderchild, now serving as temporary housing for Kalaris refugees, Commander Reed and her officers watched the transmission of the coalition proceedings. Lieutenant Moshe, still coordinating with Kalaris families, shook her head at the diplomatic posturing. They're missing the point, she said. We didn't go to Helion 7 to show off our technology or challenge the coalition's authority. No, agreed Commander Reed. We went because it was the right thing to do. The politics will sort themselves out. Indeed, as the coalition assembly continued, the tone gradually shifted. The Kalaris delegation presented detailed records of the rescue operation, highlighting the care taken by human forces to minimize casualties, even among the Drekar when possible. Medical reports showed that human doctors had worked tirelessly to treat injured Kalaris, adapting Earth medicine to their unique physiology. High Arbiter Zoln finally called for a resolution. The Assembly recognizes Earth's decisive action in preventing a humanitarian catastrophe. A formal investigation into the Drekar aggression will commence immediately, with human assistance welcomed. As the proceedings concluded, Admiral Blackwood found himself approached by Ambassador Dreth of the Solari, who had been among his harshest critics. Your species continues to surprise us, Admiral, Dreth admitted, his luminous form pulsing in the pattern of respectful acknowledgement. Perhaps we have been too quick to judge Earth by the standards of older civilizations. Blackwood nodded. Humanity has made countless mistakes in our history, Ambassador. We fought wars that nearly destroyed our world. We've created weapons that haunt our nightmares, but we learned from those mistakes. And what was the most important lesson? Dreth asked. That strength without compassion is just another form of weakness, Blackwood replied. The strong must protect the weak until they become strong themselves. Then together we face whatever comes next. 1 month later, a ceremony was held on Earth to commemorate the alliance between humans and Kalaris. The newly rebuilt Kalaris embassy featured a memorial wall listing the names of every individual, human and Kalaris, who had participated in what historians were already calling the Hellfire Rescue. Commander Vithara, now appointed as the Kalaris ambassador to Earth, stood alongside Commander Reed as they unveiled the memorial. Its inscription, written in both human and Kalaris languages, summarized the new understanding between their peoples. They assumed no help would arrive, But Earth's heroes stormed through hellfire. In darkest hour, distances and differences vanish. We stand together against the void, guardians of all who seek peace among the stars. As the two commanders looked out over the assembled crowd of humans and Kalaris, Reed spoke quietly. "This won't be the last time we face threats like the Drekar." "No," Vithara agreed, her scales shifting in a pattern of determined resolve. "But next time, you won't stand alone." Throughout the galaxy, the message was clear. Humanity had announced its presence not with conquests or demands, but with outstretched hands and shields raised in defense of others. The elder races might continue to debate the implications, but one truth was undeniable. The calculus of power in the cosmos had fundamentally changed. Earth had proven that compassion could be as formidable as any weapon, that moral courage could overcome overwhelming odds, and that sometimes help arrives in forms no one expected, storming through hellfire to save those who cannot save themselves.